The biggest myth, and I hear this from high performing leaders all the time, and those who identify themselves as very successful, is therapy. Is only like for individuals who are in crisis, right? And sometimes we think about that, but I would challenge individuals to think about like therapy and coaching. Think about that as going to the gym for your mind, right?
Mm.
Uh, I want to go to the gym not just when I'm going on a vacation in a couple months so I can get in shape, but I want to go to the gym for my overall well-being, right? So even if I have no vacations planned, I'm doing that for me. I'm doing that to feel better each and every day. So look at therapy or coaching or the support when it comes to improving your overall mental wellness. That's just you going to the gym for your mind, and being able to exercise, positive emotional and psychological health.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Expert. I'm your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7 and 8 figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. You ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Ryan Warner. And Ryan, we're going to talk about a few things, including improving emotional intelligence in order to help hit your goals. I'm talking about self awareness as an entrepreneur, as well as work life balance, and maybe touch a bit as well on reaching optimal mental health or status as well. So, should be some great areas of conversation. And with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Ryan.
Great. I'm glad to be here. Let's get into it.
Absolutely. So now before we dive into a few of the topics at hand, just as a reminder to the audience, so Ryan has been a guest on the Inventive Journey podcast, but now for those in the audience that haven't had a chance to catch on or catch up on that episode yet, maybe just take a minute or two and just introduce yourself a bit to the audience.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm Dr. Ryan Warner. I'm a consulting psychologist. I'm a father. I'm a husband. And I'm passionate about improving inclusion and wellness to maximize organizational performance. So specifically, I go into organizations. I help them improve their employee engagement, enhance team dynamics, boost diversity, equity, and inclusion within workplaces so that they can reach their potential. I do that through my coaching, consulting, speaking engagements, workshop facilitation. And ultimately, yeah, I just want to see every employee go to work and feel fulfilled in the work that they do. And also, be able to ensure that the environment is maximizing their mental health and their mental wellness. Because we know research actually shows that 50% of individuals in multiple industries across the US specifically have, a lot of challenges, when it comes to their work-life integration, work-life balance, and in turn, that impacts their mental health and mental wellness. So it's my job to come in and improve the well-being of individuals so that the well-being of the organization also enhances.
Awesome. Well, definitely a great introduction, a great kickoff to the conversation. So maybe to dive into a bit, I think that for a good portion of people, they hear or may hear the term, emotional intelligence, or maybe heard that thrown around, but probably don't necessarily have a great familiarity with kind of what that is or what it involves. So maybe to help us kick things off a little bit, help us define or understand a bit more what is emotional intelligence.
Yeah, so the way I look at emotional intelligence is recognizing how your own emotions and your own thoughts and your behaviors, how do they influence your interactions with others? And how does that influence, your performance at work, and also just in your daily life? Okay. And also it's about recognizing the emotions of others, and so that you can improve, interpersonal effectiveness. So when I work with leaders across the globe, a lot of them have a lot of experience, whether they've been a CEO or a senior leader, or a higher level manager, but they may not recognize how, when they're stressed out, how that impacts the interactions with their coworkers and the people that they lead. They may not be able to manage stress well, and then it comes off in a negative way, right? When trying to make change in their workplace. So research shows that when we're able to improve our emotional intelligence, not only do we perform better in our roles at work, but we're also better leaders and we find more satisfaction in the work that we do.
So now, and diving into that a bit more, so emotional intelligence, is that understanding when I get stressed out? Is that more so, understanding how I interact with other people? In other words, I think that it's kind of one of those terms that I think people struggle with a bit just to define, just because there's a lot of different terminologies and ways that people define it, and it takes on a
Mhm,
lot of different meanings in different contexts. So,
mhm.
any thoughts as to if you're to say, as a business, business leader or a small business owner, when you think about mental or emotional intelligence, what are the things that should be forefront of mind?
So number one, can you handle and control your own emotions? And then can you recognize the emotions of others? Okay. So do you recognize when you're starting to get closer to burnout? What does burnout look like for you? Right. It may not be you totally shutting down and saying, hey, I can't go to work today. It may not look like that for you if you're a high performing leader. But it may be, hey, when little things happen throughout the day, you react to them in a more intense way than maybe if you would if you weren't stressed out. Okay. Or are you able to recognize when the individuals that you lead, when they are not engaged as they used to be, right? Or maybe they're somewhat withdrawn, right? How can you be able to approach them, support them, create a sense of psychological safety so they feel that they are supported in the workplace, right? So those are just some real life examples of, what emotional intelligence may look like and, why it's important for us to recognize it and to strengthen it.
Gotcha. No, I think that's definitely helpful. So now, kind of diving into that. So I mean, there's always a difference between recognizing the problem versus working to resolve it. So in other words, kind of going back to, hey, I can be overweight, no, I need to get in shape, but it doesn't just be, recognizing it while it's a good portion of, or it's a good start. It doesn't mean that it, or me recognizing it, is automatically going to alleviate the issue. I'm still going to be
Mhm.
overweight and still need to go through the process of working out and eating healthier and going through a lot of those steps. So now, if you take that same kind of context when you're looking at improving emotional intelligence, kind of what are the aspects or the thing or ways that you go about kind of addressing, or once you recognize, maybe there's some areas to improve on, how do you go about, or improving on those?
So it's interesting you bring that up because a lot of individuals, especially high performers, they don't recognize that they can be able to improve their emotional intelligence. Okay, we have to look at it as a journey, not a destination. It's not like once you get to this level, hey, you have perfect emotional intelligence, right? We always have to grow and learn and engage in introspection. One realistic way to do that is to provide, to administer like a 360 assessment and send it to subordinates, send it to team leaders, send it to peers, and then have others and yourself rate you on, how emotional intelligence shows up in the workplace. Okay. This is you use a standardized assessment. And actually my team and my consulting company goes into organizations and frequently administers these assessments. And then you're able to answer questions like, hey, how do I perform under stress? Right. And then others are able to answer that as well on a Likert scale from 1 to 7. Or, hey, when, things are, when challenges arise in the workplace, what is your ability to manage conflict, for instance, right? And the
Mhm.
different measures that look at emotional intelligence, and in turn, it gives you like overall score, and then you're able to identify where you can improve. Okay, so that is like one just like objective way to obtain that information using a standardized assessment. And that's, I think, the first place in which leaders specifically start with. We know that over 50% of high performing organizations administer 360. So that's just an example of how you can identify where you can grow further.
Okay, so let's take it as an example. Let's say, okay, I don't deal well with stressful situations as a leader and lack on emotional intelligence. So go through, do the 360 test, come to that understanding, whether it's myself taking a test or getting the feedback from colleagues or people that you work alongside. How do you go about addressing that issue, or what are some of those steps to alleviate it?
Great. And just also as a disclaimer, that's only one way to identify, right? So there's
Sure.
other obviously less formal ways that we can also talk about. However, yeah, one way is to identify, okay, okay, where are my areas of growth? And then what is contributing, to this? And also, before we actually get into that, what does stress look like for me? Okay. So again, maybe I'm not going to work and I'm screaming at everybody, but maybe I'm withdrawn or I isolate myself, right? When things get tough. Or maybe I'm quick to, I'm really short, with people when I'm not able, when I feel like I'm overwhelmed and I have too much on my plate, right? Maybe I notice a sensation in my body. Maybe my heart is starting to beat fast. Maybe my muscles are starting to tense up a little bit more, right? Maybe I'm noticing I'm not getting as much sleep as I would like. Okay. All of these are physiological like signs and symptoms in which, hey, I need to slow down and become more aware of these things. And maybe I need to seek some coaching or some additional support from someone else, right? But first, looking within your body, okay, that's the easiest way to identify if you can improve your stress management. Okay.
And maybe just to dive in, just because to get a bit of actionable takeaways. So whatever
Yeah.
that is that you identify, which you listed off a number of those. Kind of circling back to again, I can realize I'm overweight. I can identify whatever's their cause, but I still have to do something about it. So when you identify, maybe walk us through a scenario as to how do you go about addressing some of those issues, or what are the ways to manage it or to improve on it.
Great. So one way is to what we call externalize. Okay. We have to get out, some stress and frustration that's out inside us. Okay. Whether it be anxiety, whether it be feeling kind of down some days, whether it be, feeling that the worst may happen in the future, whatever these thoughts that you have, we need to get them out. Okay. And now they're going to come out regardless if we want them to or not. Okay. It's going to come out in frustration. It's going to come out in road rage. Okay. It's going to come out and being maybe a little bit, snappy at our kids or our spouse. Okay. So it's going to come out, but we can decide if we want it to come out in a healthy, adaptive way. So for instance, writing our thoughts down, journaling, has been one method to be effective and helpful. Okay. Hey, what are some thoughts that I have and why are they causing me frustration? So getting out a pen and paper and actually writing down those thoughts. Another way is to prioritize our sleep, right? So there's apps out there that can help us improve our sleep to slow down our thoughts. We can engage in some meditation and mindfulness as well. Okay. Also engage in what we call behavior activation. How do we move? How do we do something that is helping us? You know, um, so I know for you, you run 10 plus miles a day, right?
Mhm.
And right there, that's a healthy coping mechanism, okay, in which you're externalizing, you're getting out that energy and you're engaging it in something that's going to help you feel good, right? So being intentional about that is also essential. So those are just some practical techniques that we can all implement.
No, makes good sense, and sounds like some good guidelines. So now, one thing, and maybe it goes along with it. I would assume it maybe has a bit of a different flavor. As we also talked about a little bit of being self-aware or having some self-awareness as entrepreneurs, and so yeah, is there a difference between emotional intelligence or self-awareness, or kind of what does self-awareness mean, or kind of what are some things that would people should look at or consider?
Definitely. So I look at self-awareness as a tenet of emotional intelligence. Okay. So I think we definitely need that self-awareness to be able to effectively manage both our emotions and understand the emotions of others. Okay. But if we don't slow down and take that intrapersonal type of perspective, then we're not going to be able to improve our awareness of that. Okay. So yeah, with that, I think that there's some practical techniques that we can all do as well to improve our self-awareness. So number one, ask ourselves, hey, what is my biggest stressor in life right now? Right? Maybe it's work, maybe it's home, maybe, it's a boss that really, gets to my last nerve. Okay. Now, what is in my control? Right? Maybe I can't quit my job tomorrow. Okay. But maybe I can practice healthier boundaries at work. Once 5 o'clock hits, I can turn off my phone. Okay.
Hmm.
Or maybe I could take some more PTO time. Or maybe I can have a formal conversation, to express my needs more. Right. So identify what's in my control and what's not in my control, and then focus on what's in your control in life. Right. So though that's another just practical technique in which you can exercise not only awareness, but now do something about it.
Hmm. No, there sounds like some good guidelines to be, or good ways to approach it as well. So now, I guess maybe to help me back up, what are some of the things that we've touched on, maybe some stressors or things that may cause whether it's anxiety or stress or other things of that nature. Are there other things that you should be or work on to be self-aware of, or otherwise looked at to get to address?
Great. So I think another more positive type of psychology approach is identify what is your strength. Okay. So what strengths do you have and how can you leverage those strengths? So maybe I'm like a very empathetic person. So when someone's going through something, I'm always there for them. Okay. How can I leverage that as my strength to in turn help me improve my emotional intelligence? Right. So maybe I'm really bad at looking within myself, but I'm really good at helping other people. Right. Then now I need to take my own advice, in which I dish out, and implement that in my own life. Okay. So that's an example of like leveraging a strength that you have and now bringing it back towards you to mitigate a weakness. All right. So, yeah, that's just an example that I think about.
No, makes good sense. So now one of the other things, again, this kind of all goes probably hand in glove, but the other one is to, as you're doing this, I assume that the goal of the ideal is to reach, in quotes, and I'll say optimal mental health, or in other words, strive towards that. And I say, maybe that's a journey as opposed to a destination, in the sense that, what, or how do you define optimal, but how do you, if you're always, if you can never define what you're shooting towards, it makes it hard to know if you're improving or you're reaching towards that. So how do you
Mhm.
start to go about, thinking or considering what may be optimal mental health, or when you've reached a point to where you're improving, or how do you go about even measuring that to know if you're reaching a good level?
Good question. So what I hear from you is like, how do you measure success? Pretty much, right? So ultimately, identifying, like, first setting some goals for yourself, right? So you can set goals by identifying where what is impacting my functioning day to day. Okay, so maybe work is stressing me out so much that when I go home, I'm not as present with my kids. Okay, or maybe I feel so overwhelmed that I don't even have time to go running or engage in those sports activities, right? Or watch the game, or spend time with loved ones. Okay, identify it. What's that gap you're trying to fill? Okay, and then you can measure success, but then implementing some of these techniques we're talking about, engaging in self-awareness, recognizing when you're stressed out, when it's starting to build up. Okay, now I need to be intentional about spending time for myself. I need to prioritize my well-being. I need to set boundaries with others. Okay, I need to prioritize my sleep, etc. Now, once you implement those techniques, then you're able to see, okay, has there been a change in my functioning? Have I been more present with my family? Have I been able to obtain more restful hours of sleep? Okay. Have I been able to cope with stress better? Right. Am I responding better when crisis and challenges arise? Okay. So you can ask yourself all of those questions, and in turn, that can be helpful. There's other apps out there as well that you can, do a pre and post type of assessment on yourself. But I always encourage individuals to seek out wellness coaching, seek out therapy if you feel like that's helpful, right? So I think that there's a lot of expert resources out there. Reaching out to an expert who can walk you through this and also be your accountability partner, that
Mm.
can also be useful.
So it sounds like part of maybe, I guess put words in your mouth, but not, not to put words in your mouth, so to speak, which would be, one is, doing self assessments or self reflection. And then two, also maybe bringing in what would be, an outside person, whether it's a wellness coach or someone else that can kind of help you to monitor, engage that progress, if you're making progress, and which areas of progress you're making. Is that a fair summary?
I mean, I look at this like, personal training, so yes, I can go to the gym and lift weights and I can, go on Google and identify what I need to do, right? But sometimes I'm missing a lot, I'm not sure, sure how to engage in a certain amount of form, like a certain form when lifting weights, or maybe I need to shift my diet. So sometimes if I'm not having that expert help, I'm missing things, right? So that's
Mm.
where a coach or a therapist, or executive coach can be helpful. So with that, right? So these are just strategies out there. It would depend on everyone's certain challenges. It would depend on their goals, right? Ultimately, we know though, if you're able to recognize your thoughts, okay, the thoughts that you have and how it's connected to your emotions and how it's connected to the actions and behaviors you engage in, then ultimately that's going to improve your emotional awareness and intelligence. Okay. So recognizing that connection better, either doing self work by yourself, right, or reaching out for expert support. That's how you're going to reach your optimal potential.
So now maybe ask, you mentioned the experts, and to follow up on that, I mean, I think that understanding that you need an expert versus finding someone that can actually help you maybe are a bit different, in the sense that, my experiences, and we work with a lot of coaches with my business, helping them with on the intellectual property side. But there's a wide variety of different, whether it's coaches or mental health, mental health, people that are within that realm. Whether it's a psychologist or that, work with a lot of those variety. Some are awesome and do great, and others they basically take a weekend class, get a certificate, and say that they're now an expert. And yet,
Mm,
from standing from the outside, if you don't know what to look for,
mm,
it makes it a lot more difficult. So if you're trying to say, okay, maybe I beyond doing a bit of journaling or self-reflection or maybe an app or those things, but if you're looking for someone that kind of provides that outside assistance or that additional information, additional insight, how do you go about judging as to, maybe who's the one that you'd want to hire, bring on, or otherwise provide that assistance? How do you make that determination?
great. So first, we need to identify the difference between therapy and coaching. Okay, I think that's
Mm,
important. So simply, a when you engage in therapy, you're more reviewing how your past is impacting your present. When you're engaging in coaching, you're looking at what's happening in front of you right now and where do you want to go. Okay, again, very simplistic type of separation, but I think that's a way that maybe people can understand the difference. So once you identify that difference, maybe it's, hey, I don't have any past trauma in my life. I'm just trying to figure out how to be a better leader. I'm just trying to figure out how to have better work-life balance. Okay. So maybe a
mhm,
coach, a wellness coach would be more helpful. So the first thing you need to identify, yes, there's different certifications, credentials out there. I'm somewhat biased because, I think when I hear the term coach, anybody can call themselves a coach. So I go out and take a class online, right? I can call myself a coach, right? However, no one can call themselves a psychologist unless you have the proper training, okay, and credentials and degrees, behind it. You need the doctoral level degree, right?
mhm,
Either a PsyD or PhD to call yourself a psychologist. Okay. As
mhm,
for like therapists, you can be at the master's level. Counselors can be at the master's level. LPCs, licensed clinical social workers, etc. Okay. So yeah, you have to identify what is the need that you want filled. Okay, that's number one. And number two, when going out and searching someone, is like trying on a new shirt or a new pair of pants. Okay, you have to find the right fit. So interview people, learn more about their backgrounds. Learn about their family life. See if you can really vibe and build rapport with them. Okay, and if
mhm.
it doesn't fit, guess what? Go to the next store. Try to find someone else. Right. So just like you're shopping, you need to be patient and also try to find the best fit for you. Okay. And three, being able to advocate for your needs. Upfront conveying, hey, this is what I want to work on. These are the gaps that I see in my life. This is how it's impacting me day to day. Hey, do you have can you support me in this way? Right. Here are my goals. So being able to advocate for your needs is also essential. So those are the three main steps you're able to find that right fit for you.
Awesome. So now one of the, or kind of maybe to go along with that, and I think this aids or assists in a lot of it as well. But I think one of the things that are many or not many or all people are really looking for is to define, kind of the elusive work-life balance, or in other words, how do you balance between, getting your job done, being successful, performing well, but also having, a balance outside of work to where the sum total of your life isn't just or all consumed by your career, by your job, or what you do for as an income or for employment. So I guess any thoughts on how you go about addressing that, or viewing it, or finding that balance?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's an ongoing challenge for a lot of people, right? We want to be successful at our careers and we want to be successful in our home life. So a lot of people use the term work-life balance. I personally like using the term work-life integration
Hmm.
or work-life harmony. How do you harmonize or integrate those aspects of different domains of your life, right? So maybe it's not 50% work, 50% home. However, maybe you're able to set healthy boundaries in your life. At this time of the day, I'm going to cut off all technology and all emails and phone calls from work. Or it's, hey, I'm going to take X amount of PTO days or vacation days a year and sticking to that. Or it's maybe communicating your boundaries to others. Hey, I appreciate after this time, I just want to let you know I don't check emails. I'm spending a lot of time with family, just giving you a heads up. It may be a little late until I can respond. Right. So
Hmm.
being able to express those boundaries and set those boundaries for yourself is essential. And that's how you create better work-life harmony. Recognize it's an ongoing type of journey, that you have to engage in. Those boundaries may shift depending on your role, depending on the industry that you work in, et cetera. Right. But identifying for yourself what is the most important to me, right? What is my priority right now in life, right? And do my behaviors align with my priorities? Okay, if my family is number one, but if I look at how my time is spent, if I'm spending 99% time at work, well, yes, that's helping me support my family, but is that really me prioritizing my family, right? So being able to ask yourself those hard questions and then shift your behavior so they align with your priorities, that's another strategy.
Hmm. So now, what are some of the ways that you align? So in other words, kind of going back to or the same thing, which and you touched on a few, but maybe diving in a bit deeper, which is, hey, I can realize I'm working too much, and I need to. I'd much rather be home with the wife or the kids, or having an outside hobby in that. Now, a lot of times that's easier said than done, right? So in other words, hey, I know I need to readjust life. On the other hand, I still have, just because you want to make those changes doesn't mean work suddenly gets less busy. You don't still have your financial or your financial obligations. You just still, you don't have all of those pressures that led you to having that issue in the first place. So any thoughts on, after you maybe taking the work life integration and saying I want to adjust it so I'm more, or spend more time with family and more attentive when I am with them. How
Mhm.
do beyond or setting some of those boundaries, but how do you go about actually or doing that so that you'll have actionable change?
Great. So number one, creating realistic type of goals. So by no means saying, "Oh, I'm going to work 50% less hours next month." That's not
Mm,
probably realistic, right? But what is realistic? Maybe I recognize there are a couple hours in my day in which I'm not maximizing that time, so I can give that back to something else, maybe a hobby or going to the gym. Or maybe when I'm engaging in those type activities, I'm fully present. So I'm not worried about work. I'm not worried about all the checking emails, right? I'm fully engaged in that activity. That could be simply improving your work life integration. So, for instance,
mm,
after today's podcast episode, I'm going to go to the gym. And typically, what I like to do is when I'm bench pressing, when I rest, I check my emails and then I respond. So, one way for me to engage in work life harmony better is to, hey, when I'm at the gym, I'm totally at the gym. That email can wait maybe till later when I get home or tomorrow, right? That's one
mm.
small little tweak in which now I'm more present in the activities that I'm engaging in. And in turn, I'm going to find more satisfaction and fulfillment. So it doesn't have to be a monumental shift in your life. It can be small, you just obtainable type of realistic goals. And in the long term, that's going to make substantial impact.
Awesome, definitely a great piece of advice and some great takeaways. So well, we're already wrapping towards the end of the episode, and it feels like we just started to scratch the surface. So we'll have to have you on maybe in a subsequent episode and then dive a bit deeper on some other areas. But at least for today, as we do wrap up, I always like to wrap up each episode with the same question. So we're going to jump to that now, which is within your industry, what is the biggest myth and why is it wrong?
Hmm. The biggest myth, and I hear this from high performing leaders all the time, and those who identify themselves as very successful, is therapy. Is only like for individuals who are in crisis, right? And sometimes we think about that, but I would challenge individuals to think about like therapy and coaching. Think about that as going to the gym for your mind, right?
Mm,
Uh, I want to go to the gym not just when I'm going on a vacation in a couple months so I can get in shape, but I want to go to the gym for my overall well-being, right? So even if I have no vacations planned, I'm doing that for me. I'm doing that to feel better each and every day. So look at therapy or coaching or the support when it comes to improving your overall mental wellness. That's just you going to the gym for your mind, and being able to exercise, positive emotional and psychological health. And we need to, to help us reach our ultimate potential and perform best at the work that we do, we have to maximize our physical health and our mental health. Because if we, are significantly impacted in either one of those domains, it's going to have an impact on our overall life, right? So that's something I would challenge everyone, right? Not everyone needs therapy, not everyone needs coaching, right? But everyone would benefit with continuing to strengthen their emotional intelligence so that they can strengthen their relationships, enhance their performance at work, and just find that overall life satisfaction.
Awesome. Well, I definitely think that that's a great myth to dispel, and also a great great advice as a takeaway. So, well, now's we do wrap up the episode. If people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above. What's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Yeah, great. So to find out more how I can possibly support you or your organization, please reach out to www.rcwarnerconsulting.com. You can also Google my name, Dr. Ryan C. Warner, to find out all the other things that I'm involved in my passion. So hope to hear from you. Please feel free to say you heard me in this podcast, and feel free to also connect on LinkedIn at Ryan C. Warner, PhD.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, make a new connection, support a great business, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So, with that, thank you again, Ryan, for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you, the listeners that are out there, if you have your own journey to share and you'd like to be guests on the podcast, we'd love to have you. So, just go to inventiveguest.com, apply to be on the show. A couple more things as listeners. Make sure to click share, subscribe, leave us a review. Helps us to reach even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey to success. And on that note, if along your journey you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Ryan, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thanks, Devin.